Hey, it's your all things streaming friend Bonnie, and we are here with the Influencer Spotlight Show. And today I'm so excited to bring you another guest. As you know, we bring you interesting people, stories, and influencers that have built strong brands. So today I'm excited to introduce you to Tasha. Tasha Seitler, MS, PhD, LMFT, is the founder and director of a thriving marriage and family therapy group practice in Fort Collins, Colorado. Her team provides compassionate, evidence-based therapy for couples, families, and individuals, offering in-person services in Fort Collins and virtual sessions across the state of Colorado. She produces content including blog articles, reels, and posts aimed at helping others improve their relationships through mindful communication. Her blog has been read by nearly 1 million readers. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. I'm so excited to cover this topic. I feel like mental health, ever since the pandemic, one of the positives of the pandemic was that mental health becomes a household word. And I feel like it's so, it's hard to have a conversation without someone dropping, oh, my therapist said. And I love
Yes.
it because I feel like it's like the taboo is gone.
Yeah.
So tell the viewers a little bit about you, who you are, and what you do.
Yeah. So I'm Dr. Tasha Seiter. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I own a group practice in Fort Collins, as you said, Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm absolutely a Colorado girly. I love being in Colorado. Love the work that I do. I think my mission in life is just to help people have better relationships, and that's what I'm doing. I feel like I was put on this earth to do, and my mission in life, and I love it. I love it.
So fantastic. It's one of my favorite shows to binge. Obviously, we're about the binge is couples therapy. I watched every season and and mostly just for like the human potential. Like I just loved watching the process. I feel like so many people think
Yes.
therapy is like, we got to look at what's wrong with you. And so much of that show was really just about like, okay, where are you? Where are you? And here's what actually was said. And then where are you? It was just so fascinating to me. So I would love to kind of hear like your take on therapy and your special sauce. Like obviously we know this is your passion, but what is sort of what makes you different and special?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love that show. So fun.
Yes.
It's so fun to watch that, and imagine that being your job, that you're watching this relationship play out in front of you. And so much of what therapy is about when you are a therapist is trying to understand what are people communicating in terms of what are their underlying attachment needs that they are trying to get through, they're just coming out in the wrong way, right? So my approach to therapy, it's called emotionally focused therapy. It's an attachment based method. Um, we really look at what are the protective responses that people are demonstrating in their relationships that come out the wrong way. It's usually some kind of fight, flight, or freeze response that keep them from connecting and keep them just triggering their partner back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And that's how cycles end up happening in relationships is we just end up mutually triggering each other and sending each other into fight, flight, or freeze and just going round and round and round. So my method of therapy, we dig into the vulnerable emotions underneath, what we call primary emotion, usually sadness or fear. There's something underneath what is going on the surface. And we dig into that, dive into that, and um, really create corrective emotional experiences where people learn how to share their feelings in a vulnerable and authentic way rather than getting caught in those patterns.
So
So
important.
important.
I get wow, it's so incredible. I love the way that you just explained that. I'll share like a personal experience. I'm gonna protect the
Yes.
protect the people involved just because the internet lives on forever. But I have two children and we are in therapy as like they're very young, but we just do like this family therapy and it's so fascinating to me. It wasn't for like a one specific thing or something that's wrong. It just improves like how we interact. And you
Yeah.
when we started, they were 3 and 4. You're like, how could 3 and 4 year olds have these issues? But it is so true. Even then, like one little one, I won't say which one, was acting out and being aggressive, but it was because it's something totally different. I was so worried about violence. Oh my gosh, it's going to mean this later on, but it wasn't about that at all. It was just about connecting. Yet that person wasn't getting what they needed because the way it was coming out was pushing me further. It was like, I'm not going to deal with it now. Go to your
Yes.
room. When all they needed was a hug and love and like nurturing. So it's great that you're able to do that and be that person for people because I personally have experienced how valuable that is because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought I'm very self-aware and knowledgeable, and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that that was because of that. So I'm sure you've seen instances. Can you obviously you can't share people specifically, but like, can you share some success stories of things that you've helped like transform and transpire?
Yeah, it's such a good question. Well, first of all, I want to say how amazing that you're taking your kids at that age to therapy. That's amazing because
Thank
the
you.
sooner the better, right? The sooner the better, that you can learn how to express yourself and
Yeah.
get your needs met
Yes.
and just have better relationships. It it makes it so much easier down the road so that there's not these ingrained patterns that they absolutely can be fixed and worked on, but it takes a whole lot longer when they're really ingrained
It's
and they've been going on for a while.
Well, and that's just what you said is so important is therapy can just be a skill set. It doesn't again have to be
Yes.
this big thing or I'm not PTSD or trauma or like yes, all those things probably factor in and therapy is incredibly valuable. And sometimes it's just learning different tools and different experiences. It's funny, I taught both of my children very early on to just say, I need all your attention right now when it's
Yeah.
dire. And they don't
Yeah.
overuse it, or I need love right now. And we had a sitter the other night, and she's like, "Oh my gosh!" I asked her daughter, this one I can share. She's like, I asked your daughter how she feels about going to kindergarten, and she said she's a little nervous. And this woman was a teacher, and she's like, the fact that she even knows that emotion is so amazing. And, I was like, yeah, I teach them all the things, all the emotions, all the feelings, all the body parts, like all, why that's not going to serve someone to put them out in the world with these, like, saying, oh, it's great, I'm excited when they're feeling terrified inside. That doesn't do any good. So,
Yes.
again,
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of what you do.
Yes. Thank you. I think
Yeah.
labeling it is the first step, right? Like being able to put words to an emotion is the first step to being able to ultimately accept the emotion. Because when we don't know how to label it or what kind of name goes with it, it
Yeah.
feels diffuse and unmanageable and you don't even understand it, right? So I think labeling it, first step to getting to a place where there's acceptance and the ability to figure out what to do with it, with the emotion.
Yeah.
So you'd asked about success stories.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. What kind of anecdote do I want to pick here? Yeah, without including too much detail or anything like that. I think that there's several kinds of cycles and patterns that I love working with, and they're very different, but also the same in many ways. So, one thing I just love working with couples on is developing emotional intimacy. You sometimes you get your high conflict couples. They come in, there's lots of yelling, it's loud, and then you get the couples who come in and they say, "Yeah, we don't really fight, but it feels like there's something missing here. Like we just don't have that much of an emotional connection, or we're not really feeling that close. It's like we're roommates or we're living parallel lives." And so you might look at these couples and think on the outside that they are complete opposite, different from each other. But the interesting thing is that actually what they both need is very similar. One is caught in a pattern of attack, attack. The way that they're expressing their emotions and their needs is loud, blaming, what we call pursuer kind of energy.
Hmm.
And then the other one, they're caught in a pattern of more what I would call mutual withdrawal, where when they're under stress, instead of going to the fight mode, they go to freeze mode or they go to flight. And that means that they're ending up turning away from each other. So success stories for each of those, what what we do is we dive in and we're like, why is this happening in your relationship? What are you really feeling underneath that response that makes you turn away, that makes you go in your own corner and or go in the garage or go in the room and close the door. What are you feeling underneath that? I mean, usually it's some kind of sense of loneliness,
Hmm.
but you don't know how to handle and manage it in a way that feels connecting rather than distancing, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, with those roommate couples, they can be so much fun to work with because sometimes they think because they're not fighting, they can feel sort of hopeless, like no one's going to understand our relationship difficulties, or maybe we're going to be told like, "Oh, you're fine. You're fine. You don't need to go to therapy. You're not fighting." I think it feels like a big light bulb when they discover, oh, even though we're not in a high conflict kind of situation here, there are things that we can do to get closer. And there is a pattern that's happening here. It just doesn't look like what you might think when you think of like a relationship difficulty.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, success stories with those withdraw couples really looks like getting them to understand their feelings more because they can feel pretty separated from their own emotional experience.
Yeah.
And being in a therapy room with someone who is patient with their emotions, and we just sit there and we explore what they're feeling, and they discover all these feelings that they didn't even really know how to put words to, and then they can put them into words for their partner and turn to their partner and share them with them. And I love working with those couples because it's just an expansion of their whole emotional experience. And I think that not only does the relationship become closer, but their life also just becomes more colorful
Yeah.
when they're able to feel more of their emotions and feel safer to not numb out. I think that that is an incredible thing to see as a therapist.
Amazing. I love that. And so talk about, I mean, a million people reading your blog. Like obviously you're putting out some important information. What are some of the nuggets of wisdom that we can share with this audience that, is attracting a million readers to you?
Oh, wow. Nuggets of wisdom. Hmm. That's a big one. Let's see. Um, Gosh, I just love writing about relationships, and I think that um, you know, I got into this because I wanted to understand relationships. It's one of these things that it's hard to study, and yet people have tried, and there's a lot that we have learned from research about relationships. What makes them good, what makes them bad, what makes them long lasting, what makes ultimately divorce happen. There are so many things that we can research and we can understand. And of course, with love, there's also a lot of things that we can't understand and are so intangible. But I think it's fascinating that we have tried to create a science around it,
Hmm.
and that there are things that we can understand from that science. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. So I always knew I wanted to be a therapist from when I was 15 years old. I'm an identical twin.
Oh.
And my grandpa gave me this book about identical twins who were reared apart. And I read that book and I was fascinated by the fact that these twins, they had a lot of similarities just from their genetics and nature versus nurture. That whole debate, I was fascinated by that from
Hmm.
just being age of 15. And I started learning about psychology and relationships from a young age. Um, just studied literally everything I could get my hands on to understand what makes relationships good. And I think that in terms of nuggets of wisdom, it's probably not surprising for a lot of people to hear like communication is the most important thing for a good relationship, right?
Yes. Any relationship.
Communication,
Yes.
yes. And we're always communicating something, even if you're
Yes.
not speaking, right? If you're not speaking, you could be communicating more than if you were just talking a mile a minute, right?
Yes.
So, um, nuggets of wisdom. My blog just has a lot of information on not only just communication techniques, but all the nuance around that. What research has shown to be predictive of long-term relationship happiness,
Mm.
long-term relationship stability, and how I see that in my practice. Because you can read this stuff, you can read about it all day, but then seeing it right in front of you in a relationship, there's so much that I learned from my clients.
Mm.
And so I try to translate those things into my blog as well, not just the research side of things, but also um, these experiences and what I've learned from my clients. It's incredible, and I learned so much about the human experience. So I'm so happy to be able to share that with my readers.
I love that. I also were very much kindred spirits in that way. Like I would have in a different world in a different life loved to have been a therapist, but I took a different path. But part of my life, about 20 years, I worked for Tony Robbins for 10 years. I did coaching,
Wow.
all kinds of things. So I
Oh,
know what you mean that like that passion for like helping people and learning and just understanding. But
yeah.
also to your point of that book, I would love to read that book. I'm raising Irish twins and they're adopted siblings. And so the whole
Wow.
nature nurture conversation is constantly in my mind. And it's really funny you just brought that up. I know it's very different than identical and our situation is different. But this morning we were in the car and my 5-year-old daughter, newly 5, is talking and she's talking with her hands, and her birth father was Honduran. And so it's like so much of her, when I am out with her, people tell, oh my gosh, your daughter looks just like you with darker coloring. And so I just let them because it feels good. I don't need to explain her story to them. It's a stranger. But then I was watching her and I was like, that is 100% nature. Like there's nothing I did. I don't
Yes.
speak that way. And it's just so cute to watch like human behavior and what things are coming from me, because there are a lot of things, and then what are innate and what are, the hand talking. And we have a lot of Latin friends, and that is a characteristic, and it's like it's adorable. But it's so interesting that you just touched on that because I love trying to understand, like, okay, that's not coming from me. So where's that coming from? And how does that play out into everything else?
Oh my gosh, what an incredible story. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's
And I
fun.
mean, talk about your daughter looking like you. She's probably mimicking a lot of your
Yeah.
expressions. A lot of that can be
It's
nurture. Can
it's
be
a
that nurture
real
side.
it's a real thing, and it's funny because you get the pop-ups on your phone. And yesterday we went to dinner. She and I went to dinner, and we were looking at her baby pictures, and I was like, oh my gosh, in her newborn photos she looks so much like her birth mom, and those
Yeah,
characteristics are not there anymore. It's weird. It's very weird. Like she's
that's
morphed into
wild.
a different look. And so I don't know how it all works. I can't wait to see this, this play out in this scientific, as I'm living it. But anyway, just to kind of relate on that note. So you've carved out a very big niche for yourself. You're a great influencer in the space, which is amazing. Our network broadcasts quite a few mental health focused TV shows. So it's exciting to see this, again, being out there, being in the mainstream. And you know, you you've done an amazing job. Talk a little bit about what's next, or like what's your vision for where you want to take this in the future.
Oh my goodness. There's just so many directions. How do you choose? How do you choose where you can go? I think one thing I'm really focused on right now is building my business. So I own a group practice, and one issue that we have in the mental health field is that therapists are oftentimes really exploited in our field. Are they're underpaid, overworked, and so one of my missions has been to create a practice where therapists can come and have a good job. And so that's one thing I've been focusing on a lot is supporting the supporters, supporting the therapists, because
Amazing.
I think that has a real trickle down effect to the clients and to the work that therapists can give. So that's one thing I'm really focused on right now. Always learning and growing, and I'm always gonna be uh working as a couples therapist. Um, Yeah, gosh, so many things. Um, Potentially opening up a second location. Um, Continuing to build content on my Instagram.
Right.
And learning how to get the message out and just help people learn through that medium how to communicate better and how to show up, communicate better, but in an authentic way. Because I think that sometimes the communication tips can be um, say this, say that, but it might not feel real. And that
Mhm.
can build up over time. When we're not really expressing ourselves
Yes.
in authentic ways, that can lead to resentment, right? So
Sure.
I think that's one of my goals with the Instagram is helping people learn how to communicate in ways that are true to themselves and authentic, and also have a positive impact on their relationships so that they can have those good relationships for the rest of their lives and
Yeah.
learn to express themselves in healthy ways.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I love the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your mission with everybody. I really appreciate your time and being able to share your story.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. And I loved hearing your story.
Thank
Incredible,
you.
incredible what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. And thank you everybody for being here and spending time and learning about different influencers. If you are a content creator and you're interested in distribution on streaming platforms, you can get a free consultation as part of this show at bingedistribution.com. And remember, keep creating. The world needs your message. Thank you so much. Have a great day.